Surprise! Another video using that crochet cast-on Swiss Army knife. This time I'm going to show you how to use that tubular cast-on I showed you last week to create 2x2 ribbing that flows continuously around the edge of the fabric. I'm also going to show you how you can use that tubular cast-on to create really any type of ribbing pattern that you'd like. As always, if you'd like to jump directly to a specific point in the video, there are links down in the description. So in the past week, 2 people have asked me if that 1x1 tubular cast-on could be used to create 2x2 ribbing. And then a 3rd person asked in the Ravelry forums whether it was possible to create a tubular cast-on that produced knit 3 purl 2 ribbing. And the answer is yes to both of those, and there are a couple of different ways of doing that. So if you don't already know how to do a crochet cast-on, I suggest that you look at the first video in this series, which you can click on here at the top of the screen, and then you'll be able to follow along more easily. So let's get started. So the materials that you are going to need are your project yarn, your project needles, a crochet hook about the same size as your project needles, and a couple of locking stitch markers. If you would like, you can use waste yarn to do the crochet cast on. And if your project needles are straight, you will need a double pointed needle or a circular needle that is about the same size as your project needle, just in order to do the crochet cast on. Then you'll be able to switch to your project needles right after the crochet cast on. Since I'm using the project yarn, I started off with a long tail for my cast on, and I will be using this tail for my crochet cast on. You do not need a long tail if you're using waste yarn. I will now crochet half the required number that I need. So I need 20 stitches, so I'm going to crochet 10. I have my 10 stitches, and now I just chain a few stitches more with the tail, leave a large loop, and now the crochet part is finished. At this point, you're going to slide all of the stitches to the other end of your circular or double pointed needle. And if you were not using your project needles to do this part, this is the part where you can join your project needles in. If you use your project yarn like I did for the cast on, you will need to attach a locking stitch marker right here. If you used waste yarn, this is the point where you would attach your project yarn to the waste yarn tail so that you anchor your project yarn. You are now going to double the number of stitches on your needle by alternating a yarn over with a knit 1 all the way across. So do a yarn over, knit 1, and I alternate all the way across. This is exactly what we've been doing for all of the other techniques in this series, starting with the pinhole cast on and the provisional cast on and the other tubular cast on. Always double the number of stitches using yarn over, knit 1. So now I have the actual number of stitches I need on the needle. I'm now going to do 2 rows of setup. Now with the other tubular cast on, I demonstrated with 4 setup rows, but you could do it with just 2 in that one as well. If a stitch looks like a purl, which this one does, then you have the yarn in front, just like you were purling, and you slip the stitch as if to purl. And then when a stitch looks like a knit, you're going to knit it. These are yarn hours. They look like knits, so we're going to knit them. Now we have a stitch that looks like a purl, so we bring the yarn to the front and we slip as if to purl. And we keep alternating back and forth all the way across, slipping as if to purl, knitting, slipping as if to purl, knitting, all the way across. So now we've completed the first setup row, we turn the work and we do a second setup row, and we're going to be doing the same thing. If it looks like a purl, we slip as if to purl with the yarn in front, and if it looks like a knit, we knit it. So the setup is complete. We're back where the crochet chain is. So the easy way of working a ribbing pattern that we want that is not purl 1, knit 1 is to simply work across the stitches the way that we like. So here I've done a knit 3, purl 2 ribbing all the way across. I started and ended with a knit 3. So you can see at the base of some of these stitches you'll have the opposite, like there was a knit 1, purl 1, knit 1 here that I made into a knit 3, and you can see the purl stitch here, and here you can see them here. So you can still see that there's a little bit of a difference at the bottom of this knit column that may not be that obvious from a distance, so somebody would have to be bending over and looking up closely at your hem to tell. So this might be a suitable solution for you, especially if you have an oddball sort of ribbing pattern. For 2x2 ribbing, you will either have a multiple of 4 stitches like I have here, or you will have a multiple of 4 stitches plus 2. You will only have a multiple of 4 stitches plus 2 if you're working flat. But if you have a multiple of 4, you could be working flat or in the round. This fabric was worked over a multiple of 4 stitches plus 2. So we start with a purl 2 and we end with a purl 2. The other side of the fabric starts and ends with a knit 2. The swatch, I have a multiple of 4 stitches that I worked flat, started with a purl 2, ended with a knit 2. So this is not symmetrical, but both sides of the fabric are identical. They start with a purl 2 and end with a knit 2. This fabric was a multiple of 4 stitches that was worked purl 1, knit 2, purl 1 all the way across. So the fabric starts and ends with purl 1 on this side of the fabric, and it's symmetrical. On the other side of the fabric, it starts with a knit 1, purl 2, knit 1. So again, the edges are symmetrical on both sides, but they don't look the same on both sides. So for this fabric, you might decide which side you prefer and choose that one as your right side of the fabric. The ribbing pattern we want will be purl 1, knit 2, purl 1. But in order for the stitch pattern to flow continuously around the edge, we also have to work the stitches as they present. So how do you work stitches that are purl, knit, so that you have purl, knit, knit, purl? Well, the answer to that is that 2 of the stitches, the 3rd and the 4th stitches, have to be worked in the opposite order. So you've got a purl stitch and a knit stitch, and you need to flip the order and so that you can work the knit stitch and then work the purl stitch. So the first 2 stitches are exactly like we need them. We've got a purl and a knit. So I'm going to purl the first stitch, and then I'm going to knit the second stitch. But now is where we have the trouble, because we need another knit and then a purl. So we're going to use a cabling technique. We're going to slip this purl stitch onto a locking stitch marker. You could use a cable needle if you wanted, and then we're going to let it just hang in the back. So now I can work my second knit stitch. So now I've got, didn't complete that one. So now I've got purl, knit, knit, and now I need my purl stitch. So I've got that marker that's holding the stitch. I can put that stitch back on the needle, and then I can work my purl stitch. So I repeat that all the way across. So every 4 stitches, the first 2 are seated the way that they need to be, but the other 2 have to be worked in the other order. So I purl, knit, put the stitch on the marker, let it hang in the back, can knit that stitch, put the purl back on the needle, and then I can purl it. Now, if you know a way of cabling without a cable needle, you can use that. So that's what I tend to do. So these 2 are in the correct order. Now this is a point where you could put this on the stitch marker and let it lie in the back, or you can use a way of cabling a 2-stitch cable without taking stitches off the needle, which is what I do. So I reorder them like this. So now they're in the order they need to be, so I can just work the 2 of them in a row. And then these two are always the way they need to be. I can always confirm by making sure that I'm keeping in my pattern. You can see I've got the purl, 2 knits, 2 purls, 2 knits, 2 purls, 2 knits, 2 purls. I've got a knit right here, and now I need my other knit so I can reorder. If you like this method that I'm using, I'm cabling without a cable needle, there's a link above to a video showing how to do that. So I've got all the way around, all the way across, and now I have to reorder these last 2 stitches. So now I've got the complete pattern. So this works in the round. If you were working in the round, you'd start and end the round with a purl. This gives you symmetrical fabric. If you have a multiple of 4 stitches and are working flat, this side starts and ends with a purl, and the other side of the work will start and end with a knit. So both sides are symmetrical, but they're not exactly the same. So here I have a multiple of 4 stitches plus 2. I have 22 stitches. So I'm going to be working this in purl 2, knit 2 sequence all the way across. So I'll be starting with a purl 2 and then I'll end with a purl 2. So in this sequence, if we want purl 2, knit 2, we can see that the first and last stitches, the purl stitch at the start and the knit stitch at the end, are presenting the way we need them to be, and it's the second and third stitches that need to be swapped. So we work the purl stitch as it presents, and then we see we need another purl stitch. We have to switch the order. So again, we can use a cable needle, or I just use a locking stitch marker because I only have to deal with 1 stitch. I let the knit stitch come off, and a knit stitch will lie in the front. Purl stitch, when you slip that, goes in the back, knit stitch goes in the front. So now I'm going to purl this stitch, and I'm going to put the knit stitch back on the needle, and now I can knit it. So then the next 2 stitches are correct, and if we're not sure, we can look at our fabric. We've got purl 2, and then we need knit 2, so we've got 1, there's another knit, and then we need a purl. So now we have to swap again. Pick up the knit, let it lie in front, purl this stitch, put the knit back on the needle, and then I can knit it. And then the next 2 stitches are just fine. And again, if you have a technique for cabling without a cable needle, you can use that. So in this situation, I come from behind to grab the purl stitch, pinch, pop, put it back on, and replace it on the needle. And again, if you want to learn my method for cabling without a cable needle, you can find it on my YouTube channel. So now again, we need to, one of the nice things about using cabling without a cable needle is that you're reordering both stitches at one time. So now once they've been reordered, you can work 4 stitches in a row. Purl, knit, knit, purl. And now I need to reorder those 2. Okay, so here I've worked 20 of the stitches, so I've got purl 2, knit 2. So if you were working just a multiple of 4 stitches and you were doing this, you just start with the purl and end with a knit 2. So the last 2 stitches on the needle need to be purl 2, but they're presenting as purl knit, and that's because this stitch would normally be swapped with the stitch after it, and it's not there. You're just going to work it as a purl. It's at the edge at the bottom, and nobody will ever be able to tell. And if you're seaming this, they really won't be able to tell because it will be inside of a seam. And this is how you'll do it regardless. So you pull on that chain till you get to the end. So now you've got the tail is threaded through all those stitches. And you look to see which is the upper and which is the lower strand. And then you can pull on that lower strand. And that will, you can just pull the tail out. If you're using waste yarn, you'll just be pulling the waste yarn out. That easy technique allows you to create any ribbon combination that you'd like. Picky knitters may not like that there could be a purl bump at the bottom of some of the knit columns or a knit stitch at the bottom of some of the purl columns, but that's a trade-off for having an easier method. Using the little bit trickier cable technique in order to create the knit 2 purl 2 ribbing that flows continuously around the edge may produce a result that you like better. But as always with knitting, you have choices and options, and you get to pick which one is the right one for you. If you have any questions or comments about this video, you can leave them down in the comments below, or you can join the discussion over in my Ravelry group, Rocks, and there's a link to that group down in the description. I'd really love it if you'd subscribe to my channel, and you can do that by mousing over my face over here, and then you'll get a little subscribe button that you can click on. If you'd like to see the entire Swiss Army Knife series of videos, there's a playlist you can click on right up here. Thanks for watching.